you may be seated tonight. Good to see each and every one of you this evening. We will read our mission letter at the conclusion of the service tonight. It is to a field that is a closed field, and so we'll read that after the live stream is ended this evening. Just to remind you, Brother Flannery asked Full of Goat coming in. He said, "How's it going?" I said, "This Sunday's Easter, next week's missions conference, the week after that's ladies' banquet, and then it's the men's advance." I said, "So it is. We've got a marathon of 3 weeks coming up, a sprint, and so it's going to be busy around here." Don't forget the order of services for Sunday. The sunrise service begins at 7:30, breakfast at 8:30, Bible study at 9:30, worship at 10:30, no evening service. All right, so 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. There's something going on the hour. Every hour we got something happening on Sunday morning. Up until the 10:30. At the conclusion of the morning service, there'll be an egg hunt, and anybody wants to go out and watch, they can. The kiddos, they're going to do an egg hunt at the end of the junior church over there. And then I believe there may be a place, Brother Patrick was going to look at setting up a little place for if you want to take an Easter picture with your family, had everybody dressed up and wanted to get a photograph, you get a photograph back there. That was the rumor. So if it's not there, that's just something they were looking at doing and talking about doing outside. So, so that may be available to everybody too as well. And then next week, next Wednesday night at this time, we will be starting the Missions Conference 2023. We'll be kicking it off, looking forward to having our missionaries in and all that's going to be going on. I encourage you to be an active part of the conference, be here every night. You will not be disappointed with this group we have coming. They're going to be a blessing to your heart. And the sign-up sheet is still back there. If you'd like to do dinner with a missionary family, that sign-up sheet is back there. And there's also a piece of paper next to it listing some food allergies. One of our families has quite a few food allergies, and so that might be something you want to make yourself familiar with, especially if you're cooking them dinner. Maybe not so much if you're taking them somewhere, but if you're cooking them dinner, you'll need to know about those allergies. And so the sign-up sheet, the dinner sign-up sheet is on what would be the gift table for the ladies over here. I've got it kind of set off by itself with those allergies listed next to it. And then we added a sheet on the back table back there for the Faith Promise Sunday lunch. Church will be taking care. We're looking at, I think we're going to do ham and chicken that Sunday, and then plus whatever you bring dessert and vegetable-wise to go with it. And that dessert and vegetable sheet's in the back. You can be the first to get your name on it tonight and pick what you're going to bring. So that sheet is also on the back table back there as well. Men's Advance is still back there. We're going to be sending that information in probably the beginning of next week and mailing it off. If you can go, I encourage you to go. It really is a blessing. We joke about it and stuff, but it is one of the things I look forward to every year, to go and just be fed by those folks. They do a wonderful job. The preaching is great. And so if you can go to the Men's Advance, I highly encourage you to do so. And then ladies, you also have a sheet back there for the ladies' banquet. Kim's excited about it. She's got a neat theme this year, and you're going to enjoy the testimony that's shared there that day by the speaker. And so I encourage you to be a part of that. The men will be taking care of making sure you're served and that you have your food and drink and everything. And so it'll be a good day. And so that sign-up sheet is back there as well for the ladies' banquet. That is April 22nd at 11 a.m. April the 22nd at 11 a.m. is the ladies' banquet. So, and then this Saturday we do outreach. It's our last opportunity to take and hand out our Easter flyers. They're no good after this week because next year, date's different, and so it's not going to work. And so please come out and help us hand these out, and let us get as many of them out as we possibly can Saturday morning. We're going to do it at 10 o'clock, and then we'll come back here and stuff Easter eggs. If you're going to bring candy to help do that, I need to know. You may not have brought some tonight, but you say, "Oh, I can drop some candy off or get some." Please let me know, because we're probably going to Sam's Friday and buying what we don't have just to make sure we have enough candy for all those eggs. And so if you're going to contribute some, we're all for it, but we don't want to have, the last thing we need is more candy around here than we need. We don't need, this staff does not need extra candy laying around the church. That's not a good thing for us. And so we want to make sure not to have a bunch over. So if you're going to help us out by bringing some candy, that is great. Just let us know you're going to do it. and we'll need it Saturday morning when we start stuffing those eggs. We'll order some pizzas from Marco's or something like that and have them delivered up here. If you'd like to stick around and help after outreach, we'll feed you lunch, and you can help us stuff about 600 of those eggs. Shouldn't take too long if we have quite a few people doing it, and get them all taken care of so that they can be ready on Sunday morning. So a lot of stuff going on, busy around here, and that's great. It's the way we like it. Sure beats 2 years ago when we couldn't do anything around here. I'm telling you, it's nice to be back when we've got a calendar and a schedule and we can do some things. So we're very excited about it. Excited about the service this Sunday. Expect to see visitors here. I mean, you know, the Christmas Sunday group, 2 days a year where you see a lot of people show up for church. And so no doubt you'll see some new faces and some visitors. And man, welcome into the services. Be friendly. Give them the right hand to Christian Fellowship. Tell them you're glad they're here. And let's make them feel at home here at Central Baptist Church this week. There's no doubt there'll be some guests in our services. All right. If you're listening to us tonight by over the online live streaming, we do plan on streaming both services. So we'll stream we will stream the sunrise service as well as the normal service on Easter Sunday morning. So we'll stream them both. And so if you can't make it to a church, you're living somewhere where you can't get to a church, and you'd just like to jump in and join in with an Easter service, all means, both times, 7:30 and 10:30, we'll be live streaming our services. All right. All right. Psalm 23. Last week we talked about Jehovah Jireh, the providing shepherd. This week we're going to look at a different name of God. Jehovah Shalom, or the God of peace. Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace. Psalm chapter number 23. And we're going to also be in Judges 6. So if you want to put your finger in Judges 6, we'll be there in just a moment. But Psalm 23:2 is where we're going to go first, and then I'm going to jump over to Judges 6. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Jehovah Jireh. Well, Jehovah Ra, the Lord is my shepherd. Jehovah Jireh, I shall not want. He is the providing shepherd. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. That's his provision, all right? That's what a sheep needs. Sheep needs green pastures. That's what they look for, all right? So our God is the shepherd who provides us what we need to survive. But also it says, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and then he leadeth me beside the still waters. I've been out on a boat before when the waters weren't still. And it'll shake you up. I don't know. I remember one particular night, we were actually, several years ago, it was a family cruise that we were doing for our vacation during the summer. And there was one particular night where Kim and I decided to go to a different restaurant on the boat and leave the kids to fend for themselves. But there was plenty for them to eat. So we went to this different restaurant on the boat. And of course, it was on the top of the boat. And they put it up there so you can have a great view and stuff. Well, that night, it was one of those nights where, I mean, you didn't walk around outside very much because we're sitting on the top of that boat. We just watched the water in our glass do this, and then do this, and then do this. We were really hopping back and forth pretty good that particular night because the waters were not calm. I've gone out in fishing boats before where there's whitecaps and the waters are not calm. Brother Schultz took us out even one night in Alaska when we were up there fishing. And it got a little turbulent in the bay out there before we had a chance to come back in. And that boat was doing this, and that wave would go up above the boat, and then we'd come up above the wave. And I mean, it gets your attention. It was an interesting ride with Brother Schultz, Brother Bill Wilson, and me in that boat. I'll just leave it at that. But that was an interesting ride. But we made it back in safely. But I tell you, when you're on troubled waters, you know it. But there's nothing that looks quite so calm as if you're standing like on the side of a pond, on the side of a lake, when the wind's not blowing, and it's just smooth as glass. That is such a calming effect, and it looks so peaceful. And that's what I picture here when it says that he leadeth me beside still waters, peaceful waters. In Judges 6, we're introduced to the youngest son of a man by the name of Joash. His name was Gideon. He's hiding wheat from the Midianites. The Midianites have oppressed Israel. They have Israel under their thumb. And in order to eat, He's got the wheat, and he's threshing it and hiding it behind the wine press because, hey, who would look for wheat in a wine press, right? And that was the concept. And so they're trying to save their food for eating. And so he's hiding it, and the angel of the Lord makes an appearance unto him and tells him that he's going to be the deliverer for the children of Israel, that God has chosen him to be their judge, to be their deliverer. And he calls Gideon a mighty man of valor, to which Gideon responds, who? Gideon did not see himself that way at all. And the angel told Gideon, no, God's chosen to use you. You are going to be the one to deliver Israel out of the hand of the children of Midian. And Gideon, of course, as he's prone to do, asks for a sign. Gideon is one that, and by the way, he's not the only one. The Jews look for a sign as a people. They're one to look for signs. And Gideon, he wanted a sign. He's like, all right, if you're who you say you are, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do, then I need a sign. I need something to help encourage my faith. And so the Lord, Gideon brought some food out and laid it before the angel of the Lord, and the Lord brought fire out of the rock and just consumed everything. And when that happened, Gideon knew who he was. Gideon knew whose presence he was in. And because of that, it says in Judges 6, it says, and when Gideon perceived that he was an angel of the Lord, Gideon said, alas, O Lord God, for because I have seen an angel of the Lord face to face. And the Lord said unto him, what did you say unto him? Peace be unto you, fear not. Gideon was a little anxious. He's hiding wheat. He's not out there running around in front of the people of Midian with a protest sign saying, please get out of our land. He's hiding wheat behind a wine press. And when God shows up, he says, oh, you're a mighty man of valor. And Gideon says, I really don't feel like one. I'm back here hiding wheat behind a wine press. That's not in my mind the definition of a mighty man of valor, And he asks God for a sign. And when God gives it, the angel responds to Gideon by saying, peace. Gideon, be at peace. It's okay. It's all going to work out just like I said it's going to work out. Peace be unto you. I can see Gideon being a little bit of maybe a worrier or a little anxious, and he's saying, all right, Gideon, peace be, calm down, peace be unto you. And then what did he follow that up with? Fear not. Be at peace, fear not, thou shalt not die. It's okay. You're going to live. It's all right. Verse 24, Gideon built an altar unto the Lord. And what did he call it? Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace. The God that just looked at him and said, peace be unto you. And Gideon in turn built an altar for peace. There are a few things today that our society seeks probably more than peace. We desire peace between nations. And of course, we do not have that today in the world in which we live. In fact, we live in a world that has got the constant threat of conflict all the time. We seek for racial peace between people groups. Peace. I use the word race, and you understand what I mean. I believe that there's one race, the human race, all right? But you understand when I use the word race, what I mean in context of the way the world looks at it. We want peace between the people groups, between the nationalities, between the cultures that are in this world. People seek peace within their homes. There's a lot of homes out there today that are anything but peaceful. There's a lot of children today that are growing up amongst anything but peace. There's constant chaos in their home. We want peace in our relationships. We'd like to be at peace with our spouse. I mean, what makes a happy home? A happy wife, right? But we seek to have peace with our spouse. We seek to have peace of mind. I mean, I catch myself all the time. If you're not careful, you can start thinking about everything that's going on, and you can just let your mind run away with you. And you just get worried and anxious and worry. And what are we going to do? What's going to happen? Brethren, there are people out there who would just like to get a night's sleep. Just a peaceful night's sleep. The Word of God describes for us really two kinds of peace. Romans 5:1 tells us that being justified by faith, we have peace with God. That's the first kind of peace, peace with God. Brethren, when it comes to peace, peace with God is first and foremost the first thing you need. That's salvation. Until you're saved, you're not at peace with God. In fact, the Bible says that if you're lost, you're at enmity with God. You're not at peace with God, you're at enmity with God. Peace with God comes through our salvation. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Peace with God is a product of salvation. When you are saved, you're born into the family of God, you're a child of God, you're joint heirs with the Lord Jesus Christ, you're no longer at enmity with God, you're at peace with God. All right? But there's another kind of peace. Philippians 4:7 tells us, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Peace with God comes at salvation. Peace of God, you got to be saved to have the peace of God. And you can't have the peace of God unless you have peace with God. All right? But just because you have peace with God doesn't mean that you're experiencing the peace of God on your life. The peace of God is a product of walking in fellowship with Him. It's a product of a relationship. When we're walking close to the shepherd, there's peace. When we're in the presence of the shepherd, there's peace. That's the peace of God. The peace of God comes from the security of knowing the shepherd is near. That's what the peace of God comes. That's where it comes from. It's not the absence of danger. The peace of God is not because there's no danger in the world. The peace of God is because greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. That's the peace of God right there. It's the presence of the shepherd in our life. Psalm 23:2 said He leadeth us beside the still water. That's the peace of God. That is having the peace of God in your life. I said earlier, there's nothing more peaceful in my mind than looking at a lake or a pond or even the ocean in that case when it's still. It's not troubled. There's no waves. That is a peaceful thing. And the peace of God is when, brethren, your life's not troubled. I'm not saying you don't have trouble. I'm saying that you're not troubled. In other words, the trouble is not ruling your life. You have the peace of God. There's no one in here that's going to live a life without trouble and problems. If you figured that one out, man, you need to be the one up here telling us how to not have trouble, because the Bible says in this life you will have tribulation. That's expected. But in the same sentence, Jesus said, but that's okay. I've overcome the world. All right, that's the peace of God right there that we can have. The peace of God, when you look at He leadeth me beside the still waters, three things about the peace of God I want to bring to your attention from this passage real quick. Number one, the peace of God comes with submission to the shepherd. The peace of God comes with submission to the shepherd. Here's what I mean by that. The word leadeth. Notice it doesn't say He drives me beside the still waters. It doesn't say that. Shepherds don't drive their sheep. I've seen shepherds with their sheep. They're not walking behind them. They're walking in front of them. Now, you drive cattle. You know, you get on there with horses and you drive them and you push them forward. Driving sheep's not a successful venture. All right? You don't drive them. You lead them. He leadeth me beside the still waters. The sheep hears the voice. And by the way, the sheep knows the voice of their shepherd. And they follow that voice. They recognize the voice of their shepherd. You cannot be led, though. You cannot be led without submission. No one can lead you unless you submit and allow them to lead you. If they're not leading you, they're driving you. Now, there's a difference between being driven by someone and being led, all right? There's a difference in being a leader and being a driver. And as the peace of God comes here in this passage, it says that the shepherd wants to lead you. But in order to lead you, you have to submit to being led by Him. Else you're not going to be led. Isaiah 58:11 is a great verse I was looking at this afternoon. It says, and the Lord shall guide thee continually. And then it says this, and satisfy thy soul. But notice the satisfaction comes after the what? The guidance. The Lord shall guide thee continually. That's number one. And because of that, there'll be satisfaction. You want the satisfaction of the still waters? You got to be willing to be led. You got to submit to being led. The Lord guide thee continually, Isaiah. It's interesting. He leadeth me beside the still water. We will not, and now you say, I want to know where I'm being led. Well, you're not always going to know where you're being led. The sheep don't ask the shepherd for a map. The sheep don't ask the shepherd, all right, please detail me out where you're leading us today. They don't, and you say, well, that's absurd. We are sheep. The sheep don't ask the directions the shepherd's taking. The sheep just follow the shepherd wherever he goes. I thought about the children of Israel in the wilderness. They followed a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. They had no idea where they were going, but all they knew is this: when that cloud goes, we go with it. That's what they didn't get they did not receive a MAPSCO, Egypt to the promised land in 10 days. They didn't get that, all right? All they knew was when the fire or the cloud moved, they moved with it. Most of you don't even know what a MAPSCO is. I was just thinking, I just lost about half of the young generation. Map what? Y'all have never lived. Anyway, till you've gone through a city flipping page to page trying to find where you're at on a MAPSCO. But brethren, we don't always know where we're going. That's why it's called a walk of faith. If you always knew where you were going, there'd be no faith necessary. It's a walk of faith. You don't know where you're being led. And by the way, the shepherd can't lead you if you're fighting him. All right? The idea is not for the shepherd to put a rope around your neck and pull you one way while all four of your legs are out like this and you're saying, I'm my own boss, I don't want to go. That doesn't work. If you want the peace of God, you've got to be willing to be led. That plain and simple. Now, if we understand the peace of God, then if there's going to be submission, after that submission comes the supply. Well, what's the supply? Still waters. Still waters. That's the supply. You know, you can't live very long without water. And you might go a month or two without food, but you ain't going to go that long without water. I think 2 to 3 days at the tops before you're a goner if you don't have water. They say that a sheep's body consists of 70% water. I think it's like 70% water, 20% wool, and 10% there's a body under there somewhere, you know. 70% water. Water is necessary for your body to function. Without it, your body will shut down. One organ at a time. It'll shut down without water. It's not up to the sheep to find the water, though. The sheep they're not looking for the water. They're following the shepherd. You hear me? They're not looking for the water. They're following the shepherd. It's the shepherd's responsibility to lead the sheep to the water. As the sheep, it's not our responsibility to find the supply. It's our responsibility to follow our shepherd who will bountifully offer us his supply. What happens, though, is oftentimes we start trying to walk towards our supply, and our supply is not where the shepherd's leading us. The shepherd provides the water. Sheep are notorious for no sense of direction. They have zero sense of direction. They get lost. They don't, I definitely am a sheep. As I get older, my sense of direction's terrible. It is horrible. If I gathered the name U-turn earlier, man, there's no telling what I'd be called today, because I get turned around and sometimes I forget which way I'm headed. That's a sheep. Sheep's sense of direction's terrible. If you're giving me directions, do not say go out, go east, and then turn. No. Don't tell me, go down to the quick stop and hang a right, and then go down to you see the dog in the yard and go left. Don't tell me left. Don't tell me north, south, and unless the sun is rising or setting, you ain't got me. Okay, that's it. It's not going to help. And so I'm directionally challenged in that way. Sheep have no sense of direction. It's the shepherd's job to lead them to the still water. They're not going to find it on their own. They have to have the shepherd's help. You know, when you think about that and you think about the supply of the shepherd, I thought about Christ in John chapter 7, verse 37, when Christ said, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. That's the supply. It's an endless supply. We're talking about spiritually. It's an endless supply. The word drink, I actually thought, what's the definition? To drink into the soul what serves to refresh, strengthen, nourish, and give it life. Brethren, that's what God does for us. We submit to His leadership, and then He leads us to the supply. He's the one who leads us to the supply. I'll tell you what, when you get thirsty, you know it. Never known anybody to say, I didn't know I was thirsty. No, you're thirsty, you know you're thirsty. It's the way it works. And brethren, I tell you, sometimes when we quench the thirst with something that dehydrates instead of hydrates, it doesn't work. And that leads to the third thing. Remember, you have to submit to the leadership. You have to trust His supply. And number three, our satisfaction comes from the supply. In other words, it's Christ that satisfies us. It's the shepherd that gives us satisfaction. A sheep will not be satisfied until they drink. If you're thirsty, I mean, if you've worked a hard day in the Texas heat and you come in and you're sweaty and you're thirsty and you want something to drink, you don't want someone to hand you a can of motor oil, because a can of motor oil is not going to satisfy. You're not going to walk out satisfied holding a can of motor oil, okay? You're going to want someone to give you a glass of water. You're not going to want someone to hand you a bottle of olive oil. Olive oil is great for cooking, and sure, it's a liquid, but it's not. You don't want to drink it to satisfy your thirst. That's not going to work, all right? Those things, they don't satisfy. There's only one thing that's going to satisfy. If you're thirsty, you want a good old cold drink of water, something to satisfy that thirst. Your soul will not be satisfied by something else. And the idea is, for every cool drink the Lord has for us, for every supply the Lord has for us, the devil's going to rush up with a counterfeit. We don't think the devil can counterfeit. Listen, the devil is the master counterfeiter. Even what did Paul say about him? That his angels are looked at as the angels of what? Angels of light. They counterfeit themselves. We have this concept that the devil, got a tail and two horns and a pitchfork. And listen, the devil was, as Lucifer was the most beautiful angel that was created of God. And so he's a counterfeit, 100%. And whatever God offers, the devil's going to offer you a counterfeit for it. And when it comes to this, it's no different. The sheep travel through places where the earth is dug out. For instance, say you're leading your sheep and they're going to come through maybe a puddle or an area where the earth's been dug out and there's stagnant water there. Water that's been mixed with mud and water that's been mixed with waste and stuff such as that. And you know what is the shepherd's job? The shepherd's job to stand there and say, don't drink this. Because what's going to happen if the sheep drinks that water? What's going to happen to them? They're going to get sick. In fact, not only get sick, if they drink enough of it, they could possibly what? It'd kill them. But someone has to be there to tell them, no, dumb sheep, you don't drink this water. This water is not good for you. All right? But if we're not careful, that's what happens to us. The devil's going to walk up and say, here, I've got this. This is easier. This is quicker. This is the easy way out. And he's going to provide us his substitute. The world offers all kinds of substitutes. Satan offers all kinds of substitutes to the satisfaction of God. For everything God offers, he's got a spiritual bottle of soda that he'll put up there on the counter to try to tempt you with it. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13 is the perfect illustration where Jeremiah says, for my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken the fountain of living waters and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns. In other words, Jeremiah is saying, he says God's people, instead of drinking the fountain of living water that God has offered them, they're drinking out of a broken, cracked, stagnant cistern that they themselves hewed out of rock. And how foolish. No one in their right mind would drink stagnant water out of a cistern over a spring. No one would do that. But yet, God is saying, my people are doing that. Spiritually speaking, my people are just guzzling down the stagnant water of the world, the world offers, and they're not touching the spring water that I'm offering them. And we do the very same thing. We'll take the devil's counterfeit, and we'll just drink away, and we'll just guzzle it down like everything's great, not knowing that God has something better for us. One guy put it this way, I kind of thought it was funny. He said, it's like the dog drinking out of the toilet saying, it doesn't get any better than this. And a lot of times as people, that's like, we just drinking up everything the world gives us, and we're thinking, well, it doesn't get any better than this. Are you kidding me? There's much better waiting for us if we just follow the shepherd and not take what the world has to offer. We know our bodies. We know that they need water. We know that. We know that Christ is the shepherd that leads us. He is the fountain of living water, and there's no other place to get it. The shepherd will lead us there if we'll follow him. But remember, there's a way which seemeth right unto man, but the end thereof is the ways of death. You say, well, I think the water's this way. Better follow the shepherd. Well, I like the path is easier this way. The way the shepherd's going, it's rocky and it's uphill and it's not going to be an easy journey. It'd be much easier if we went this way. You better follow the shepherd. He knows where the water is. He knows where the good water is. He does. Ecclesiastes chapter number 7, verse 29, Solomon said, Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. It says God made man upright. But since then, he sought out his own way. Many inventions, many roads, many ways that God would not have us take. Man has sought them out. Jesus Christ, he is the source of living water. He is the shepherd that will take you there. So you have to submit to his leadership. You have to, not only that, you have to understand that the supply comes through him and him alone. And that satisfaction, true satisfaction, only comes through his supply, because the water that the world has to offer, as Jesus told the lady at the well, you'll have to come back and get a drink of this again, because it's not going to satisfy you forever. You have to keep getting a drink. He says, the water I offer you, you'll never thirst again. That's satisfaction. Jesus Christ will never leave you wanting. He always satisfies those who follow him. So the question then would arise, have you found peace in your life? People are seeking it. People will go to great distances to try to find calmness. I said earlier, and I meant it, it wasn't as a joke, there are people who would just covet a night's sleep, but they can't get it. Peace eludes people. I don't care how big. I heard a wealthy man say one time, a wealthy believer, he says, he goes, I learned a long time ago, he goes, there's not a check I can write that'll give me a night's sleep. He says, you can't buy that. He says, there's no amount of money that can buy a moment without worry. Because you can't purchase the peace that I found when I found Jesus Christ. You can't purchase that. And I'm telling you, friends, there are so many believers today, even Christians, that are so consumed with anxiety. What it amounts to is, if you really start pulling the layers of the onion back, they're probably not submitted to following the shepherd. And they're following their own devices and their own goals and their own paths and their own directions. Or have they submitted to the fact that he's the source of their supply? Or do we keep running out to the world and trying to get a quick fix because it looks easier than following the shepherd? We need to make sure that we get our water through him. Jesus again said, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. What an invitation. Years ago, a man by the name of Herbert Buffman felt a call to the ministry. He was 18 years old when he got saved. He became an evangelist but he was also a prolific songwriter. He wrote a lot of different songs, many of them inspired by personal experiences in his life. When it was said and done, he had written about 10,000 songs. 1,000 of them were published in his lifetime. Though a talented musician, he never received a musical training at all. He had no professional musical training. And when he died, the Los Angeles Times called him the king of gospel songwriters. That was what they called him. And even though many of us would know a lot of his songs, one that he possibly wrote, that one of my favorite old hymns that people might recognize the most, starts off with the thought like this: my sheep know my voice, and the pastures of green, where I lead them so often to feed. My sheep know my voice, and the cool sparkling stream, where beside its still waters I lead. My sheep know my voice, and day by day they abide in the fold and go not astray. They love me because I have made them my choice, and they follow my call, for my sheep know my voice. Let me tell you something. The child of God knows the voice of his shepherd. We know our shepherd's voice. Will we submit to it, and will we follow it? The peace of God. I hope tonight you all are at peace with God. I hope you all know Christ. But I also hope that in your life you have the peace of God. That can only come by following the shepherd. Let's have a word of prayer, and we'll look at our prayer sheet tonight. Father, I thank you for this time together this evening as we looked at your word. Father, and we thought and we considered the shepherd of peace. Lord, I pray tonight that as we move on to our prayer time and we consider the needs of those in our congregation and those who are in contact with people within our church family, Father, I just pray that you would move in their hearts and their lives. Lord, I pray for the services on Sunday, Lord, that you would just give us a great day in your house, and Father, that the gospel message would go forth clearly and plainly spoken. Lord, I pray now, please keep us safe in this place. Father, please